We are inching closer and closer to one of the biggest PlayStation 4 game releases of all time, quite possibly to many people, the biggest PS4 game release of all time, and that is, of course, Naughty Dog's latest release in The Last of Us Part 2. And with us getting closer, in today's video, I want to take a look at 15 huge things that you need to know about The Last of Us Part 2. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Kicking things off with number 1, this generation, an imperative, a constant notion has been the open world movement. A lot of games going open world, and while The Last of Us Part 2 is not going open world, and I am very happy about that, it will have wider spaces that allow characters to investigate its periphery, to learn more about the world and characters. Expect a lot more exploration elements. If you guys are familiar with Naughty Dog games, Uncharted 1 through 4, Last of Us Part 1, those games were really narrative. I would say The Last of Us was a little bit more open than some of the Uncharted games, but nonetheless, The Last of Us Part 2 is looking to open up the game quite a bit, but it's not going to be a full-blown open world game, and I'm happy about that because that's not the integrity of what Last of Us is. If Last of Us went open world, it would be something like, okay, we're going open world just to appease people liking open world games and liking having a ton of content, and Last of Us 2 will have a decent amount of content. We'll get into that in a second, but the fact they are keeping a linear approach to the game for the most part, I think is a great sign. Alright, number 2. Yes, it's gonna be a linear, however, The Last of Us Part 2 is Naughty Dog's longest game ever. Narrative lead Hallie Gross noted, quote, "The game I think we're saying is about 50% bigger, but it is massive, not just in length, but in like all of our levels are bigger and wider. We have more cinematics, we have more characters, we have more animations, we have larger melee systems. In every way, this game is better and bigger, not a padded game experience." And that's something that I think is you have to look at. It's not going to be a game that's padded because there are a lot of open world games. I'm not going to throw any shade, but let's be real, there are a lot of games that have north of 50 to 100 hours of content, but it's a lot of padded content. With The Last of Us Part 2, you can expect a consistent gaming experience where the pacing is on point and every piece of content feels like it matters. To give you guys an idea on the possible length of the game, Hallie Gross did note about 50% bigger. Last of Us Part 1 took around 12 to 15 hours to complete, so with that in mind, Last of Us Part 2 could be around 18 to 24 hours within that range. Number 3, of course, collectibles is going to be a big part of the game, and Ellie can still pick up various items and notes around the world, though they have much greater fidelity and detail this time around, and that's saying a lot. That makes it sound like Last of Us Part 1 didn't have a great amount of detail, because it absolutely did, but now, with all of these years of development time, the PlayStation 4 hardware, obviously that's going to be taken up a little bit. Number 4, so far we know 2 locations, and the demo that a lot of media outlets played introduced them to Jackson, Wyoming, and Seattle, Washington, a location previously teased in past trailers. Jackson is actually the site of Ellie and Joe's home, and they live in a large settlement in Jackson, Wyoming. And Ellie is one of the survivors in Jackson, Wyoming that is looking out for a little bit of danger. She goes out on daily expeditions to survey the area and ensure its safety, so she's actually taking on a lot of the burden. Ellie's time in Seattle introduces her to the WLF, the Washington Liberation Front, a militant group who have taken over the area. They're imprisoning, killing those who trespass on their territory. Ellie has to go to Seattle because she has to rescue Tommy, of course, who is Joel's brother. Number 5, in an interview with Polygon, co-director Anthony Newman spoke a lot on the game and revealed that the team at Naughty Dog has programmed working heartbeats into every single character in the game, including Ellie herself. He noted, quote, "I'm not sure if you noticed it, but Ellie, as she sprints and as she settles, she'll kind of catch her breath. What's happening behind the scenes is that Ellie has a heart rate that is oscillating up and down. It goes up when you sprint, it goes up when you melee, it goes up when you take damage, and it goes up into the presence of enemies. And that modulates the bucket of breathing sounds that she's able to use." If that isn't an attention of detail that you can't appreciate, I don't really know what to say. That's an area where Naughty Dog really excels at. Look, is an element like this going to sell another million copies of the game? No, but this attention to detail is what makes everything come together in Naughty Dog titles and just makes a much more immersive experience. That's why something like that, I feel like it is important to note, because you have to give them credit when they do go the extra mile and offer elements like that that are so minute but do add to the overall presentation of the game. He also noted, "It's been incredible because I found myself able to play cat and mouse with clickers better than ever before, because I can kind of understand them by the noises they are making, and the humans will do the same thing with breathing and sprinting and stuff." The idea behind Naughty Dog's heartbeat tech is to add another layer of intensity to The Last of Us 2's gameplay, gameplay. Quote, not only do our human enemies have names, they have hearts, and this sequel really is going to make us feel like a monster. If Last of Us Part 1 didn't do that, Last of Us Part 2 surely will make you do that, and it's going to be an emotional roller coaster, adding that level of emotional depth to every single character, not just the main characters, but everyone you see within the game, which I think is pretty damn cool. Number 6, GameSpot editor Phil Hornshaw spent time with the game and also spoke to the co-director Anthony Newman about various features, and when they talked about the upgrade system, Newman noted, quote, there was so much we really wanted to explore in terms of player strategy. We really wanted to try and double down on allowing players to express themselves strategically and find their own way to play the game. And so something I'm really thrilled about is the new player upgrade system, where rather than having upgrades that are just minor stat boosts to different things, we really wanted to have upgrades that potentially unlocked entirely new abilities or just had drastic effects on the way that you played a game. So obviously, with different upgrade paths, how you play the game and how you assess the game and tackle the game, that is going to vary from player to player, and that's going to add a whole new layer of gameplay options, and also, usually with elements like that, that does add a layer to the replayability, so that's really cool to see out of The Last of Us Part 2. Number 7, parlaying from number 6, but let's talk a little bit about Ellie's capabilities. Newman noted, quote, one totally new ability you can get is holding your breath while aiming to steady your aim. It doesn't come by default, but you can learn it over time. These can overlap with other systems, and Newman noted, quote, there are entire crafting recipes like the silencer for the pistol that you can only learn via the player upgrade system, or some extreme upgrades where you can craft 2 of an item for the same resources. You can craft 2 trap mines or 2 smoke bombs for the same amount of resources. Number 8, head honcho Neil Druckmann spoke a lot about The Last of Us Part 2 over the last few months, and he spoke specifically on mutations. He noted, in the first game, there is all this documentation about the different stages of the infection. Druckmann noted, now we have to justify why there are different stages. Why are there mutations of these things? Without getting into it here, there is something about the environment and how much time has passed that has allowed these mutations to occur. So obviously, that's a level of mystery that's attached to the game, and I imagine that mystery will unfold throughout the course of The Last of Us Part 2. Last of Us Part 1 left us with a lot of mystery yet to be discovered. I'm hoping that we do get some answers out of The Last of Us Part 2, and I imagine we will. He also noted we have runners that close the distance quickly, we have clickers that move slowly but are one-hit kills. Shamblers provide this area of attack where they have this cloud of gaseous acid that burns materials around it. It burns your skin. The way you saw it in this demo is that they're mostly on their own. It gets really interesting because you have a cloud that hurts you when you enter it, but it also blocks your view. Then runners burst through, so the combinations get really interesting. And yes, the gameplay variations isn't just going to come from Ellie's upgrades, that's going to add to it, but also the multitude of different mutations and creatures you're gonna see. How they attack you is gonna differ, and how they synergize with each other, that's gonna affect the gameplay experience as well. Number 9, now while Last of Us offered us a fantastic experience, Druckmann is actually looking on creating a different style of experience with The Last of Us Part 2. He noted, creating a grounded experience is a pillar of Naughty Dog's vision. For this game, the team seeks to retain the principle while also expanding Ellie's gameplay options with a wider variety of weapon customization abilities and mobility, noting, quote, we're after a grounded experience, but that doesn't really mean one-to-one. First of all, you don't have all the inputs you'd have in real life. Your inputs are limited to a controller, so with that, how do we create a system and an aesthetic that feels grounded so Ellie couldn't kill as many people as she does in the demo in real life, but we need that number to create the tension. The tension is more important than a realistic body count. And likewise with the system, if you had these weapons, your life and death would rely on them. You would clean them, you would tend to them. So we created systems and aesthetics. We really zoomed the camera in and show you the weapon and how she works them to improve them, to make you feel the connection she has to these instruments of death, in a way, what it means to survive in this world. Again, these are just elements, once again, adding to the immersion level and making it feel as realistic as possible. I'm cautious to use the word realistic because that's not necessarily what grounded means, because it's hard to make a game realistic. When you're playing a video game, again, you're using a controller. That isn't realistic from the get-go, so your input isn't realistic, but to create that grounded experience where the tension is there, I think that is very important. Last of Us Part 1 really got that right, and I think Last of Us Part 2 is only just going to accelerate that factor. Number 11, it was noted that Ellie and Dina ride on horseback in one level, and the horses are quite loyal to you, and they're very intelligent. If you run too far away from from them, they're gonna find you on their own, and they'll be right there, so good to have some intelligent horses on there as well. I thought that was something interesting to note. Alright, number 12, this is a little bit of a bummer. I love The Last of Us Part 1's multiplayer component, however, in The Last of Us Part 2, it doesn't seem like we're gonna be getting a multiplayer portion of the game. Naughty Dog put out a statement and a message regarding multiplayer, and here's what they said about it back in September of last year. We wanted to address multiplayer in The Last of Us Part 2. As we've stated, the single-player campaign is far and away the most ambitious project Naughty Dog has ever undertaken. Likewise, as development began on the evolution of our factions mode from The Last of Us Part 1, the vision of the team grew beyond an additional mode that could be included with our enormous single-player campaign. Wanting to support both visions, we made the difficult choice that The Last of Us Part 2 would not include an online mode. However, you'll eventually experience the fruits of our team's online ambition, but not as a part of The Last of Us Part 2. When and where it will be realized is still to be determined, but rest assured, we are as big a fan of factions as the rest of our community and are excited to share more when it's ready. Now, with The Last of Us Part 1, I think the standout to everyone was the single-player campaign, but personally speaking, I got really into the multiplayer portion, and I thought the multiplayer was awesome, so it not being a part of The Last of Us Part 2, yes, it's a bummer. However, if they are trying to create this incredibly ambitious single-player experience, I understand where they're coming from, but I just hope at some point we do get more Naughty Dog multiplayer content, because they are quite underrated in the multiplayer realm as well. They're always going to get credit for their awesome single-player campaigns, but their multiplayer experiences have been rather good as well. Number 13, for you Last of Us Part 2 superfans, or I should just say Last of Us superfans, you might want to pick up the Ellie edition that went out of stock very quickly. However, now it's coming back in stock. A PlayStation blog post recently detailed, "You've been sending us letters, emails, and messages on social media asking if we could get more Ellie editions in your hands. Since selling out last September, we've been working closely with the teams at PlayStation to make more The Last of Us Part 2 Ellie editions. We're delighted to let you know that the Ellie edition will be back and available for pre-order in limited quantities, available at select retailers across US and Canada starting Thursday, February 13th at 6 a.m. Pacific, so it's already live. Now, this is a $230 edition. So this is obviously for superfans, but it includes a lot of stuff. The steelbook case with the full game, 12-inch Ellie statue, 48-page mini art book from Dark Horse, Ellie's backpack, Ellie's bracelet, The Last of Us Part 2 logo patch. You've got a lithograph art print and thank you letter, a 7-inch vinyl record featuring music from the original soundtrack, set of 5 stickers, set of 6 enamel pins, and then you also get a bunch of digital content. All of that for $230. That's probably for Last of Us superfans, but with the restock, I wanted to make you guys aware of that as well. Number 14. Going from $230 all the way to free, you should know that there is a free Last of Us Part 2 theme available right now. You have to use a promo code, which I'll leave in the description box below. For you guys in America, the promo code is 4FMPBBNM-J5L3. Over in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Russia, Middle East, Africa, India, you're looking at the code of 9DEK-PKNG-N445. Free theme, check it out, deck out your PS4, nothing wrong with that. And finally, number 15, the most important part, when are you going to be able to play The Last of Us Part 2? Well, it is coming May 29th for PlayStation 4, enhanced for PlayStation 4 Pro. Originally, the game was scheduled for February, saw a little bit of a delay, but now we're inching closer and closer to the release. And that's going to conclude this video. Again, I am as excited for The Last of Us Part 2 as I am any other game this year. Put it up there with Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy VII Remake, hell, the rumored PlayStation 5 games. Last of Us Part 2 is a game that is going to be for the generation. It might be a generation-defining experience, and I'm comfortable in saying that because it's Naughty Dog. When was the last time Naughty Dog put out a game that was less than stellar? You're looking, like, ever? Has that ever happened? I thought Uncharted 1 was awesome too, so that's gonna conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.